A very warm welcome to all the delegates post-lunch. We now begin with our next session, which involves keynote address from distinguished personnel from the industry. May I please request our first speaker, Mr. Venkat Raghavan, Senior Vice President, Corporate Development, BlueCoat, to please join us on stage.
Good afternoon, folks. Good afternoon again. Thank you. Always a tough act to go after lunch. Things settling down and whatnot. So hopefully, I had a lot of coffee here as well. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present today. And I want to talk about the strategy for advanced threats. And is it going to display on this screen here? So the topic I want to talk about is strategy for advanced threats. And I think this is a topic we talked about extensively the past couple of days. And that's very top of mind for customers here at this conference. But fundamentally, I'm going to talk about a new approach, a new way of thinking, a new mindset required for this next generation of a threat landscape you're facing. In BlueCoat, we call it business assurance technology, and I'll explain what this means. But at the end of the day, at the end of the session, I want you to walk away saying, is the current approach and the path I'm on actually working? Do I need to take a different approach? Do we need to take a pause and take a different approach? And when do I get a clear level of validation and verification that my security side is actually working for me? So that's been a challenge within the industry as we keep. What was that? Okay, we'll keep going here. So before I go into some of the presentation details itself, let's take a step back on the evolution of the internet and web security. We'll take a look back in history. If you look back around the period of 1998 to 2004, we saw the first generation of security architectures being put in place, primarily on the back of the dot-com boom. So that boom really resulted in the first generation of security architectures around the internet. We saw highly scalable reverse proxies, authentication technologies, caching technologies all go into play, and that sort of really provided the foundation of what we have as a baseline technology today. Most of customers in this audience today would have started in that time frame, starting to build out some of the capabilities in that time frame. And that time frame also was built on the fact that at the end of the day, those security capabilities went in to support business initiatives. If you look at the first generation of applications, they're all web applications, B2C applications, and then we evolved to B2B applications. So they all had a very specific purpose around driving security to address a business need. So that's the important point, is that circa those 6 years laid the foundation that today is still present in many of the customers' infrastructures today. The second generation I would call is circa 2004 to 2010, which is mostly focused on compliance. And this is when we looked at the compliance regulations, and Sarbanes-Oxley came into play. A lot of the focus for our industry moved from security first to compliance first. So we took a big shift in our approach to security. Compliance is all the rage. As long as you're compliant and all the check boxes, you're good to go. But compliance never meant you were secure. You could be 100% compliant, and we all know in this room that you're not secure. So we took our mind off the ships of 6 years of investments into compliance-focused architectures. In 2010, you saw the first sort of buzzwords around advanced threats. APTs became a buzzword. And now we are here at this conference looking at what is the next phase of this evolution going to be? Are we going to again focus on security or compliance or something else? How do we know when we got this right? So now we're at an inflection point for the industry to say, are we focused on the right things? This is the first question. Second, is our approach and strategy working? After 18 years of security investments, companies are still asking the question, am I secure? Do I know this? And how do I know when I get there? And lastly, do we have the right mindset for the next horizon? And the reason for this sort of question is, over the past several years, a decade or so, we've made technology investments in this equation. We never thought about at the end of the day, what is the end state of the strategy? And so once again, I worried at this point in time, we're back in the advanced threat regime now. Once again, we're looking at what is the next technology, what is the next sandbox, what is the next whitelisting. And we don't think about, at the end of the day, is this the right approach I'm going to take to the marketplace to be successful the next 5 to 10 years? So that's what I'm going to focus on in this session. Now let's dive in. What are the big challenges today that's facing customers? The first thing is for businesses or companies that are embracing new technologies. So with or without IT's help, businesses moving on. They're seeing significant productivity advances in using new technologies, whether it's cloud-based applications, whether it's mobility, mobile devices. It doesn't really matter. This trend has already been embraced. Huge productivity gains happening across the globe. That genie is already out of the box. So most customers are looking at providing capabilities around their core business infrastructures, customer intimacy, analytics, and things like that. So at the end of the day, IT can be supporting this initiative, or our companies are going to do whatever they want to do to drive the momentum going forward. The second big trend is the highly empowered users, which is we have a highly agile young population of users who have access to all the technologies and mobile devices. They're going to download whatever applications show up. They'll click and they're going to use because they think that's easy to use and that's going to make them highly productive. These are inexorable trends. You cannot reverse them. So the combination of business owners looking at new technology to drive growth, margin, expansion, and intimacy with the customers is one big trend. The other big trend is the highly empowered users saying, I'm going to do whatever I can to download the latest apps with or without IT's help. This combination is what we're facing right now, and it's happening all across the world, and it's going to get worse. Now, all of us now typically have 3, 4, 5, 6 devices now. That's going to increase. So that's the trend we have going on right now. So the implications of these trends are, we need to understand, is IT going to help the business make this more available, more accessible, or IT is going to be in the way? IT security, are they going to help businesses be successful, or are they going to say no? Because saying no is not the point. Like I said, businesses are already going to do what they want to do, and therefore we already have a new market called shadow IT emerging, which is IT capabilities that IT doesn't know about. Fancy that. So we're having a huge challenge in terms of how we take this to the next level here. Now at the same time, when these business trends are being impactful, we're seeing daily articles on newspapers across the globe. And I don't want to go through all this because we covered this yesterday extensively. A lot of speakers talked about this. This is again an endemic challenge. These things are happening because we have increased attack surface, increased data, increased connectivity, increased hyper-connectivity, if you will. Therefore, this is going to be an important challenge for us. So the combination of the business trends around business applications and owners trying to get ahead of the curve and driving share expansion, profit expansion in their own industries with a highly empowered user base, combined with this attacks that's happening, is really the big problem. That is the perfect storm of how we need to think about it. That's why I keep asking the question, if we go down the same path we've been on the past 20 years, is it going to help us get there? And are we going to be successful when we get there? That's the core challenge we're trying to face as an industry. So the first challenge is, I'll take a simple example here. In a typical proactive security scenario, you see the business identifying a need for an application or a particular IT service. They'll work with IT to collaborate on business requirements. IT defines the risks and mitigation steps. They have a pilot. If it's successful, the solution gets rolled out. This is typically how we built this industry over the past 10, 15, 20 years. Now with this new trends around mobility, cloud, and highly empowered user population, we now have a shadow IT scenario. It goes something like this. Business and users get together, identify a cool application to use. They love it. They got a few users signing up, and those users are, of course, happy to sign up. They roll this out without any IT information security plan, and then after the fact, IT is now trying to figure out what to do with this technology rollout. So IT is always behind the curve. They have sort of lost the plot with this equation. So we call this business assurance gap. And so the way it's going is the business are going to drive to what they want to accomplish in terms of growth, profitability, and market focus. At the end of the day, IT can be with the party, or they can be going to be left behind in the discussions going forward. So this is the first challenge we want to contemplate in any sort of discussion around the next generation of security. The second challenge is, of course, the advanced threats is all the rage these days. The threat landscape has changed significantly. And if you look at the outer circle here, regardless of the motivation, it could be nation states, hacktivists, cyber criminals, insider threats, you name it, doesn't really matter what the motivation is. These attacks are coming is already incumbent upon our infrastructure and enterprise. That's a given. So whether they're zero-day attacks, DDoS, APTs, and whatnot, they're all out there. We also have a whole bunch of security architectures and products today that are used by customers today. You talk about IDS, firewall, SIM, DLP, NAC, VPN, email security, you name it. They're all out there. We still have a major gaps in terms of the exposure. That's why the advanced threats come through the infrastructure, come through these defenses. So we have to acknowledge we have a basic gap, a fundamental gap in integrity, availability, and confidentiality. And this gap, I assert, is primarily because of lack of security intelligence. I'll come to this in a bit later. So the combination of the IT, shadow IT, driven by a high degree of customer intimacy and the business needing to drive their growth forward using new technologies, with the combination of advanced threats, is really the problem. So you really cannot separate the problem. You cannot simply talk about advanced threats without the impact to the business. And vice versa, you cannot talk about an advanced threat strategy without helping the business understand what that is and how they can be, how they can be successful in implementing their own business strategy. At the end of the day, it's the business that drives the IT and security, not the other way around. So our challenge, if you will, is to sort of characterize this as how do we secure this technology and empower your business at the same time? And this is a very new approach to the marketplace. The industry is built upon fear and uncertainty and doubt. You're going to be hacked by the firewall, by the IDS, by the sandbox, by whitelisting, you'll be safe. That model has not worked. It's not worked and would not work in the future. Now, are they required? Absolutely. But it's got to be part of a comprehensive approach to figuring out what are the risk characteristics of your business. Am I agile to drive business goals? And then security becomes the back end of the problem. So we would submit very humbly in BlueCoat that we need a different way to think about the problem. Because at the end of the day, we need to be very helpful to business initiatives in helping to be successful. At the same time, we need to manage risk to the enterprise in taking those risks and opportunities. Now let's dig into the problem a bit more. What do we mean by advanced threats? How do we even put our arms around the problem, other than talking about technology? This is the great chart from the Verizon DBI report. And I talk about this as two 80% problems. The first 80% problem is that at the end of the day, initial attack to compromise, right, takes less than a day. Okay, this is all based on data. This is not some hypothesis or some anecdotes. But the time the customers take from initial compromise to discovery takes months and even years. So this is the problem. We have to accept the fact that we're going to be compromised because most compromises happen less than a day. Before you know it, you're already breached. So that means there's an unknown threat. It's already inside the enterprise. It's living inside the enterprise. Now you need to discover this quickly, identify this, contain this, manage it, mitigate this. So our goal is to narrow this gap as close as possible. So therefore, the era of providing blocking technologies all the time is gone. You simply cannot just block these threats. You need to accept the fact these advances are going to be there. But like any other risk management program, we manage risks around the intrusions and the incumbency of the attacks and put together a strategy in place for doing those things. So at the end of the day, these are the two big circles, two 80% problems. One is attack to compromise is quite fast and highly agile, but the time to discover these attacks takes months and even years. That's the big gap is, and hopefully we can now think about a new way to figure out how do I get this gap narrowed as close as possible. And that's the big challenge we have as an industry, not just as a company. If you're a CISO sitting in this room, you're talking about this and asking the questions, I got an advanced threat now, what do I do about it? Who did this to us? How did they do it? What systems and data were affected? Can we be sure it's over? Can it happen again? These are basic questions. They're not technology questions. These are process and operational questions. And if you can answer these questions effectively, with a high degree of confidence, then you need to question their strategy in the first place. So these are the questions CISOs are asking. And this is, if you ask these questions with a high dose of skepticism, then ultimately you're going to find the right strategy and architecture to go support your requirements for the next 5-10 years. So at the end of the day, this problem is not a technology problem. Technology is part of that, but it's a broader seismic shift in the way we think about this, our mindset and approach to solving this problem. Now, this is always a balance. I always talk about the fact that at the end of the day, it's a balance between it's a balance between the the new environment the business wants to accomplish, and the technology we need to get together. That's the balance we're trying to strive in this equation. Our approach in talking about this is really three things. We need to have an ongoing operations to block all these advanced threats, all these known threats. But that's not enough. We need to actually go and look at the incident containment, and finally we need to manage the resolution of these incidents as well. So we talk about this as a three-stage cycle. And that's why advanced problem is. At the end of the day, we have to block known threats, which is all the technologies we've built up over the past 20 years. We need new capabilities for us to manage and contain these incidents. And finally, we need to manage incident resolution under the guise of a SOC or an advanced management structure that actually encompasses all these things. And that's a huge change. So we call this lifecycle defense. So at the end of the day, we need to have process, technology, as well as people driving this technology and this next generation of architecture. A lot of use cases around this advanced threats. I won't go through all the details because we're running out of time here. And I'll end this discussion by talking about, at the end of the day, BlueCoat offers business assurance technology. That is the balance between business initiatives driving growth, profit, and customer intimacy towards the model around managing risk around these advanced threats. It starts off with the continuity of business operations, but more importantly, driving into the new trends around mobility, cloud, applications, and ultimately having a governance model for you to manage all these threats and making it a next generation architecture for the next 10 years. A full portfolio of products around blocking, remediation, as well as the process around the remediation as well. But more importantly, I think the approach that BlueCoat is taking is very unique. At the end of the day, we think at the end of the day, it's about aligning to the business goals and the interest, and then having the technology back into the discussion. Finally, my last chart is, ultimately at the end of the day, there's a shift in mindset required for this problem. We simply cannot, we can take two paths. We can go back and do the same thing we've done over the past 20 years and expect different results. Now, I think it's quite tough. You know what the answer is. Or we can change our approach. At the end of the day, we need to go back to the mindset of security and verification, number one. Number two, we need to rethink security for the hyper-connected world. Everything is going to be internet-enabled, internet of, the internet of everything is now already upon us. And so we need to kind of figure out what is the security strategy for the next 10 years that's going to drive us there. Third important point is the realization that business is going to move without their IT self. At the end of the day, IT can help the business. Most of the time, they're going to stay out of the way, and the business are going to do what they want to do to drive their fundamental agenda. So we think security should be an enabler of business that drives new business initiatives. And lastly, now is the time to rethink the security architecture for the next 10 years. The time is now. Look at the investments, where we're investing in terms of the old technology, the new approach, and make adjustments. And because this is the long-range planning that's required. So we submit that business assurance technology is a very unique approach to the marketplace that looks at how do you calibrate the business aspects of driving growth, profitability, and share in your own industries to the aspects of risk you need to take. Advanced threats is a problem, but at the end of the day, if you simply view this as another technology problem, we've done a disservice to the industry. Let me stop here, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Venkat Raghavan. May I now request the next speaker, Mr. Aman Puri, Head IT Solutions Fujitsu Consulting, to please join us on stage. Yeah.
Hello? Yeah, it's working. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aman Puri from Fujitsu Consulting India. And one of my colleagues, Pratap, could not make it for the conference, got struck in the East Coast because of snow. So I'll be taking you through the Trusted Computing Group overview. It's pretty silent, pretty lunch session, post-lunch. Okay. So let me take you through with the call ID. I haven't passed 3 days, I got a chance to meet a lot of well-educated, intelligent people on the subject of security. And, I was thinking, when the word security comes to my mind, right, what's the first thing that comes to my mind? It's the most secured area, when I think in India, that's what I feel. So, the first thing that comes to me is defense forces, army area. Pretty strong, secured, defense, I think that's something I relate very well to. And my initial years of working with defense, I was told one lesson that defenses can never be 100% complete. So all we have to do is we have to prepare and be ready for the next attack, not be reactive, be proactive around that. So how does the system works in the defense forces and how it works here in the IT parlance? So, like what Venkat said, day zero of an attack. It takes time for people to understand the attack and the virus and its patches. So, day zero, I don't think we are very much equipped. We can have patterns to understand, but day zero, very difficult to cover the patch, or basically cover the virus till the time we don't have a patch for that. And what do they do in defense? Like they have the barriers. You try to enter a defense area, you have to validate yourself. First, this is my iCard, this is my photograph. So they validate and then only you enter. Whereas in the scenario where we are sitting today, the virus comes in. Then we find out where the virus is, what the virus is, and then we try to build a patch. So, the key thing that we all were talking about is trust. Now, trust cannot be just say, guys, trust me, I'm there, and you say, okay, please welcome. So, there has to be a process, there has to be approach. So, close to about 10 years back, large IT companies, they got together. They said, so what does the future look for us? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line. Are we still be building patches? Are we still be working on antivirus? What does it look like? Or we'd still be working on the blacklist approach. So what is blacklist approach? Till the time you get someone to transact with the computer, an application comes in, you have a list, you validate it that, okay, this is not in the list of virus. So that application can come in. The whitelist approach, the trust-based approach is pretty much opposite. They say you only transact with the people you know, the trusted applications. So a computer A talks to computer B, and then there is a third registrar who is keeping a track of the state of the computers. And this is not just software-based security. The data, the hash values are pretty much stored in a chip called TPM, which is actually right now would be sitting onto your laptop or your tablets. Close to 1 billion devices right now have this TPM, the Trusted Platform Module. And right now it might be in a dormant stage. And in future, when people build more applications around it, more secured applications, all it would need to be is just switched on. So next time when you enter the BIOS of your computer, the people who like to play with technology, you will see the TPM. So Trusted Computing Group is where all these companies got through. They said, we all need to get together, we need to find some solution. So we are an international industry standards group. I'll just try to switch the mode for me. Yep. So we help publish the standards, the specification, and anyone can use the specifications once they are published. The TCG publishes the specification and uses membership implementation for the TCG technology. And so the model is pretty much like a working group model. So experts from the industry, they come together and they help build the standards. So this actually fosters a neutral environment where collaborators, competitors, they all get through and pick up the best industry practices to build solutions which are vendor neutral and interoperable. So as I said, this is a not-for-profit organization formed to develop, define and promote open, vendor-neutral, global industry standards supportive of a hardware-based root of trust for interoperable trusted computing platforms. So we are based on the when you say we, the standards by TCG are based on the hardware root of trust. It's been there for about 10 years now. Some specifications are international standards, and nearly 2 billion products today are having these devices, chips inside them. So as you can see, the trusted systems, it's pretty much on mobile phones, storages, infrastructure, servers, network security, and now the embedded systems. Recently, Google became a member of Trusted Computing Group. And not just for the search engines, but to what it looks to us is they're looking to utilize the trusted computing chip or the TPM for the Google cars. You know about the driverless cars that they are testing on. So that's what they are looking at. Because the future, when you have tablets controlling these devices, you would need trust. I was looking at some automation options for my house. So a guy came with an iPad tablet. He told me, Aman, you can switch on your air conditioner, you can switch on your music system using your iPad. And he demonstrated it to me at my home. Everything sounds good, it's fantastic. Your wireless cameras at outside your home, they all are integrated with your Wi-Fi. How easy it is to hack, or I would say, I don't know how future would look like if those controls gets into some other's hands. I'm in bad shape. So trust is a very important aspect here when we all be working in different devices, and that's why we were talking of this interoperability. We all follow the same standards and try to build applications around it. Okay, so some benefits. These TCG standards reduce the cost. So this is the data that we collected. The TPM is half the cost of a smart card, 1/3 the cost of a token, and provides built-in authentication. I'll go through some more details into that. I'm already running out of time, okay. So it's all deployed on millions of products. All you have to do is just switch it on. There's no detailed IT required. Standard-based approach, and these standards are ISO, IEC has approved the TPM specifications. So I'll pick the key slides. This shows the evolution. It started from computers, moved to servers, mobiles, and industrial control, automotive. It's all moving into that area. It's close to 1 billion devices now. Been there for around 10 years. So I'll take you to actual use case. So Google Chromebook. What it does is it actually has the TPM, and when the computer starts, the BIOS actually checks for the hash values of the system, the applications loaded on that, and it checks with its own measurements, and if it's not measured, then it goes to the last known good version of the system. So Google Chromebook actually uses this. Diebold, one of the ATM company, they uses this in the ATMs for secure communication. They have the TPM, and that's what they think, that hardware level security provides stronger protection than software only solution. So I'm not saying this works in isolation. They can all work together to build a much stronger and much secured platform for the future. Aberdeen's analysis of 41 companies with current deployments involving hardware root of trust, the TPMs, and the self-encrypting drives, and comparison with 86 companies who did not show that companies use the hardware roots of trust. There was $80 per endpoint user per year advantage that they had. A recent article that we read, that there was a report that was given to President Obama, which talks about the universal adoption of trusted platform module. It's pretty much available on whitehouse.gov, and you can get some more details on that. But what they are saying is, in all the hardware procurement that we are doing, it just needs to put an extra clause, says that the machine needs to have a TPM module. You know, it needs to be compliant with the trusted computing, because in future, if there is a need and the environment opens up for trusted computing and developers build applications around the TPM, then the cost of replacement of that server is too high. It might be a few dollars right now, but future it will be too high. So this is just to bring the awareness on the TPM, and but I'll just skip this slide, and this is my email ID. Still you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I'll help you. I'll be happy to answer them. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Puri. May I now welcome our next speaker, Mr. Gautam Aggarwal, Vice President, Product Marketing, FireEye. Presentation. This is fine, right? Yes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. So, last 2 days, I believe we have given you enough overdose of APTs and cybersecurity and sandbox. So, I believe you're ready for more, right? Can I see some show of hands? Anybody ready for more APTs and sandbox? Well, I thought so. I was only 1% in the audience. He's still brave. He wants to hear more about APTs. So definitely not going to basically overdose you with more of advanced persistent threats, targeted attacks, threat landscape. I believe all of you have heard about this stuff. All of you being here is a big endorsement that you understand the threats are real. It's all happening around you. So what is it that from a FireEye perspective, or from what we bring to the table, we want you to leave with? I cannot give you tons of slides. I cannot have a death by PowerPoint every time. So what do I want you to leave with as a part of the whole presentation? So definitely, if I'm going to share the 2 numbers with you, the only 2 numbers you need to remember when you go back home today is 90 and 100. Don't think about this thing as our India cricket team score against South Africa, because those are not the numbers. I wish they could have done better, but definitely 2 numbers, 90 and 100. What does 90 mean to us? So if somebody's going to come back and tell you about advanced persistent threats, what exactly is advanced persistent threats? Why exactly are we looking into this stuff? Is because what we're going to be looking at is something called a zero-day exploit. Gone are the days I can come back to you and talk to you about viruses and worms and trojans and botnets. The number you need to remember is who is catching those zero-day exploits. If there is an advanced persistent threat or a targeted attack happening on you and me, there is a zero-day exploit happening. And if there is a zero-day exploit happening, who is catching those exploits? And if we talk about the second number, which is 100 right now, if there is advanced malware or modern malware or sophisticated malware which is happening, we all believe that the malware is not static in nature anymore. It's polymorphic in nature, and it's definitely evolving, right? So if the malware is so sophisticated and such a smart malware, what exactly is this malware doing? The first thing this malware is going to do is going to basically, whatever box you're running, this malware is going to find a way of evading that. Welcome to the world of traditional defenses being rendered useless. Completely. Any traditional defense we have had so far, as my good esteemed colleague would say over here, is just to keep the lumps out of the network. What's happening right now is this malware is designed to evade every possible sandbox. And that's the reason at FireEye, we're not going to present to you a sandbox-based solution, because there is no sandbox-based solution. You need the right solution, you need the right number to work with. So 100% of the anti-evasion techniques happening in 2013 were all caught by FireEye. And if you don't believe in the number 90 and 100, absolutely, come back to me after the presentation. Tons of news articles and press releases to share with you. What are the 0 days which were happening? What are the anti-evasion techniques which were being applied? And then how FireEye was able to catch all of them. Now if I multiply that problem by these additional numbers coming into play, what do I see happening around the world in 2013? 2012 was the advent of all the 0 day exploits happening, all the anti-evasion techniques happening. 23 million of malware communication has been recorded year to date. And when I say 23 million of malware communication, that's encrypted malware. That's payload encryption. That's not anything, nobody's going to send you an exe file in the clear. I can guarantee you that. If you're going to come back and click on an exe file coming back to you in an email, I think there's something absolutely wrong with what we're dealing with right now. They're going to completely obfuscate or encrypt or find a way of sending you a payload encryption. And 23 million of that malware communication proves the fact that that's going around the circles. The second thing is 12 million callbacks. And these 12 million callbacks are happening in 184 countries around you. And I can guarantee you this thing, this is not just China alone. This is not just Middle East alone. This is not just Russia alone. You will have South Korea and you will have United States of America hosting callback servers. Why is that? On one hand, we talk about blaming everything back on China and Middle East and Russia. On the other hand, we hear about South Korea and Japan and United States of America having callback servers. It's all about the infrastructure. If I'm going to get a 100 Mbps pipe and I want to basically find a way of exfiltrating your data or your intellectual property, where am I going to set up my connection? I'm going to set up a connection where I'm going to get a 100 MB pipe and I can exfiltrate the data back in minutes. The other important fact to keep in mind, the reason I'm building up this story is because I think there's a method to madness. And that's what is important for us to understand. Why are we doing all this stuff? Why are we all here? Why are we so much interested in knowing about APTs all of a sudden? A couple of years back, as a part of my previous company, we'll share the name with you towards the end, but a couple of years back, it was all about firewalls and IPS sensors and 5 false positives. So how come APT has become such a prevalent thing? I think the understanding the advanced threat landscape becomes extremely important for us. If anybody comes back and says, I have an APT solution, please share this slide with them and ask them to go through this entire attack life cycle with you. Because that is the key. 90% of your 0 days happening, 100% of evasion techniques happening, 23 million of encrypted malware happening, you're looking at 12 million of callback channels happening. What is all this stuff? How does it all come together? So the first thing which happens is when somebody does an APT attack on you, is they're going to find a way of exploiting you. And the exploit doesn't happen on a single dimension. It's going to happen on a multi-dimensional basis. How many of you use Internet Explorer or a Google Chrome or a Firefox? Pretty much all of us, right? And you've also seen security bulletins coming out from Microsoft talking about security patches and security bulletins, right? What is happening? Why are those security bulletins coming out? Is because each of these browsers have a vulnerability which somebody's going to exploit. Hence, they're expecting you to basically apply the patch and make sure you're running the latest version which is fully patched. How many of you use Adobe Flash? Adobe PDF? Pretty much all of us. How many of us use Microsoft Office, Windows or Mac? Pretty much all of us. How many of us are using Windows XP, 7, Mac, MacBook, MacBook Air? Everybody's using that. The fact that I can now exploit vulnerability happening in your browser, in your file system, in your Adobe Flash, in your Microsoft Office, and in your Windows system or your Mac system is how I'm going to find an entry into your system. As a CISO and a CIO, and all my esteemed colleagues sitting over here, I'm pretty sure we all try to follow our data and make sure our data is secure because our jobs depend on it. But the attackers don't think that way. They're going to find the path of least resistance. They're going to find a way of exploiting each and every vulnerability in your system so that if you're patched at one level, they're going to come back to a different system. And they're going to apply this thing across multiple vectors. Web, email, data centers, file, mobile, everything. They're going to find every vector possible and they're going to do an attack. So it's extremely important for us to understand as a team that exploit detection is critical. And that exploit detection is not an exe file. It's not an executable. It's a very small piece of a shell code which comes in, runs in memory, nothing gets written on your hard disk. Opens up a callback channel to a command and control server somewhere in the world, and then it's waiting for the encrypted malware to come in. The malware which comes in is so encrypted in nature that you're going to be using that exploit key to decode that. So if anybody comes back and tells you that I can do an APT solution, and I can throw this file of yours into a sandbox, guess what? Where is the exploit key? You completely miss out stage 1. If you're going to miss out stage 1, stage 3 of the encrypted malware or a payload encryption, you're not going to be able to do anything with that. It's going to look like a regular JPEG file or a PDF, which is going to pass through your system and exploit your system. Big false negative. So welcome to the world when we had firewalls and IPS, big false positive. Now welcome to the world of big false negatives. Everything looks like a JPEG and a PDF goes through your system, infects the system. And then finally, when that happens, they're going to come back and do a lateral spread and also exfiltration of your data. My esteemed colleague from BlueCoat was sharing with you the Verizon DBIR report, and I think I'm going to stress on that again. What exactly are the two things you're taking away from that? You're taking away the two key aspects is your exfiltration is happening in minutes, but your discovery and containment is happening in months and years. There's a huge gap between minutes and months, which is happening over here. What was happening specifically in Asia Pac and in India around the last 2 or 3 months, which we have seen, 1,500 of those APT detections were happening and 0 days were happening. 40 exploits. We've been talking about 0-day exploits. 40 exploits were happening across one vector, which is web only. I'm not even adding email or file or a mobile device over here. 1,900 encrypted files coming in. All kind of encryption techniques are applied. Exploit key missing, you cannot decrypt it. 11,000 callback channels to 184 countries. 11,000 callback channels. So if somebody's going to come back and say, so what? That's a question you should be going back and asking them and saying, 11,000 callback channels? I can't even imagine what's getting exfiltrated as a part of my organization right now when I see those 11,000 callback channels. And this is APAC alone. I'm not even talking about the 12 million callbacks we saw worldwide. If I've been able to scare you enough, let's go through some use cases quickly. And these are real use cases. What's happening over here? So one of the execs came in, they came in, checked their email, click on the email, and then what happened is Joe the hacker sitting somewhere in the world had already done a social engineering on Mark the IT exec. And this is a real use case I'm talking about. This is one of the biggest port industries or a port authority somewhere in the world, and they lost $300 million in 30 minutes. Exactly what happened. Mark came in, clicked on the email, got completely owned. Somebody was able to basically do a watering hole attack or was able to basically get him to go to a website which is compromised. If somebody says a watering hole attack, it means there's a website they're getting you to go to which is compromised. When there, encrypted malware came in, got access to his credentials, took the CCTV camera offline. Mark was in charge for all the CCTV cameras around the world for the port authority of that company. In 30 minutes, 2 of the ports were emptied out. Multiply that problem with a new vector. So that was the email vector we were talking about, how Mark got owned. Welcome to the mobile world. And this example happened in India. Won't name the company, won't name the organization, what happened, but they basically built up a custom app. How many of us basically believe that all the custom app or all the trusted apps have all the trusted libraries? I can guarantee you right now, all the trusted apps. So next time you see your kid playing Candy Crush or Sugar Crush, there is a malicious library which is underneath that particular trusted app. And that has been downloaded 200 million times. And that has access to your calendar, microphone. It's exfiltrating all your videos and your contacts. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Apply this problem to a real world scenario. South Korea attack. How many of you heard about South Korea attack in March? Same thing. Coming in, advanced malware, web vector and email vector, applied all the evasion techniques. The malware was supposed to be a time bomb. particular day and particular time I'm going to wake up. Before that, I'm going to do all the benign activities. Do a sleep call, sit over there. So if you cannot even detect what's happening with the exploit, what's happening with the malware, how they're trying to evade the so-called sandbox, welcome to South Korea. This is another real-world example. Again, all the examples I'm sharing with you over here is typically tied back to some organization happening in APAC or in India right now. USB key coming in, plugged in, data center got owned. How much does a USB key cost in India? 500 rupees? How much was exfiltrated? 500 crores. Finally, if you're looking about, how many have heard about the term victim as an attacker? Right, so if you're going to have a website, so it happened to one of the premium organizations for social media where the website got owned, and then the victim became a hosting site for malware. Anybody coming there was getting owned too. And that's a pretty well-known site which was happening. Who are the key threat actors you're looking at right now? So definitely China, Russia, Middle East, and United States of America. Different techniques. All of them use different techniques. And then finally, if I'm going to do a wrap-up over here, culmination of everything I talked about. Right? Multi-vector, multi-flow, exploit detection, attack correlation. The important piece of the puzzle is you have to look at your architecture holistically, and you have to look at a solution holistically. Cannot come back and say, I have an APT solution, I have a sandbox, I know exactly what is happening with the cyber criminals. I want to see is believing. Test and verify. Make sure that anybody is going to come back and give a solution to you, you can test and verify. Across multiple vectors, multiple flows, because that's what is going to save all of us from an APT attack or what's happening right now in the threat landscape. With this, I'm going to end my presentation. Thank you very much. Great seeing all of you. And if you have any questions, I'll be here in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aggarwal. May I now request our next speaker, Mr. James Frost, Technical Director, EMEA and India, FireMon, to join us on stage. Okay, I think we should wait a couple of seconds to see if Mr. James Frost probably stepped out for a minute. While we wait for Mr. Frost to join us, I have a few announcements. You can log on to Twitter and use our official hashtag, which is AISS13, and take this conversation online with the larger community. And DSCI is available at DSCI_connect. We are also on Facebook, where we share our updates as DSCI time and again with the larger audience. On Facebook, we are there as DSCI.connect. Post the keynote session, we have another session which talks about the entrepreneurship challenges and specifically focusing on security ventures and the story of Indian security product companies. For that next session, we will have Aditi Pardes Mehta, who is the editor of Business Standard, who will moderate the session. I'm sorry? Sure, absolutely. We can take a quick questions if any of the previous speakers want to come back on stage and take a quick question from the audience. So first, I think I need to check with the audience if they have any questions for one of the keynote speakers that we had earlier. There, sir.
Samsung Knox, is that also compliant with the trusted computing, or it is moving in that direction? That is a question for Aman.
So your question is Samsung, right?
Samsung Knox is that as it stands, it is not actually the root of trust. Sometimes not. But is something moving in that direction?
See, I mean, from a company perspective, it would be very difficult for me to comment. Looks like when the advantages of hardware-based root of trust gets realized and people see in the bigger scheme of business, they might like to move towards it. But I mean, so there are two aspects to it. A trusted computing group, like what we just presented, is a group of organizations who agreed to follow particular standards. Right? Maybe in China, they have their own version of trusted computing. So it totally depends upon an organization whichever way, whichever market they feel more likely aligned to. I'll have to check actually. If that was not on the slide, then there is a very low probability.
What is the time horizon according to you for widespread adoption of trusted computing within the mobile devices?
Okay, I see it has already started, but I would say it will still take about 3 years, 3.5 years for this to be really visible to people. But it will first start in the notebook PCs area, which will take another 1.5 to 2 years, and maybe a year after that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Okay, I'll have this one here. So I was asking that I've seen HP laptops having TPM, but not all of them have it. I guess there's a specific brand or special series there that have TPM. So do you guys push them to have TPM in every laptop, because you told me it's very cheap?
You know, very valid question. Actually, when I joined this group, I was told, guys, every computer has TPM. Your laptop will have a TPM. I opened my laptop, it actually did not have a TPM. So then these points were actually conveyed to the organizations. And in some countries, they're 100% mandate. Some countries, they're on particular versions. But the way we're seeing this penetration happening, I think in a few years it will be on all standard company computers.
So are you also working on something like a plug-and-play solution? If I don't have it built in my laptop, I can just plug something in?
Okay, so from a standards body, we will not be able to make that call for that organization. But what we are encouraging is for that people to follow the similar standards. And why is that? Because tomorrow when we all move to that level, we all have our standards which we follow to in terms of security. So that was pretty much it.
Excuse me.
We'll take one last question. I'm sorry. We'll just take one last question before we begin the next.
How do you ensure that, how do we ensure that whatever chip you have, that is a trusted chip in the laptop?
Oh, okay. So it's a trusted chip in the laptop, right? So when the chip is actually built, it's built in the factory. It is epoxy glued to the motherboard. And some pre-built hash values of the system, the operating system, are actually coded into it. So very interesting thing which was asked yesterday was, can we add another hash value? Can we write? So you can write, but you cannot rewrite. So if one value is there, then new value will come ahead of that.
Does TCG spec allow software implementation of the root of trust?
So what we do is we only provide standards for the TPM. It will depend upon the people, the companies to build applications around it. Thank you so much. I appreciate the interest in the subject. Thank you.
Can Indian enthusiasts contribute to TCG spec?
Yeah, India is already a member to Trusted Computing Group. Thank you.